Hi, and welcome to episode 7 of Book Chat with Julie. I'm Julie from the Argenta Branch Library, and we're part of the Lehman Library System in North Little Rock, Arkansas. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about historical fiction. It's a little bit of a deeper subject, and you'll have to bear with me as I read a lot of my notes this video because there's a lot of information. So what is historical fiction? Historical fiction is a literary genre in which the plot takes place in a setting located in the past. Although the term is commonly used to relate to a historical novel, it can also be used in other types of narrative, including theater, opera, cinema, and television, as well as video games and graphic novels. Is historical fiction real or fake? Plot. The plot in historical fiction novel is a combination of real events and fictional events. You can invent characters and cities and events, but they still must make sense to the time period. What is the difference between historical fiction and fiction? Historical fiction is a fictional story that is written around and includes historical events, usually from the past. A fiction based on real life can be based in any past and include historical events and not be considered historical fiction. It's the historical theme that determines if it's historical fiction. Let me introduce you to Lisa Wingate, a great historical fiction author. The Argenta Branch Library had the pleasure a couple summers ago of hosting an author event and book signing with Lisa. She was traveling the state of Arkansas with the Arkansas State Library, and we got to visit a little bit before the event, and we kind of put two and two together and started comparing some of our stories. And I come to find out that she actually went to high school with my husband in Tulsa. So that was kind of neat for them to get to chat and to get to share some stories before her event began. Having written over 30 novels, it was her novel Before We Were Yours that remained on the New York Times bestseller list for over 104 weeks and sold over 2.5 million copies. And Before We Were Yours takes an almost unthinkable chapter in our nation's history and weaves a tale of enduring power that Georgia Tann and her Memphis, Tennessee Children's Home Society could actually exist, unraveling the lives of countless children and stealing their past and changing their futures will give you chills. But the real feat of this stirring novel is how deeply Lisa plunges into the heart and mind of the 12-year-old river gypsy Reel Foss. Reel's utterly singular voice will stay with you long after the last page is turned, as will Lisa Wingate's courage to follow her anywhere. So that was an exciting read. It was a great book club discussion book. Just this past fall, she did come out with a nonfiction before and after, and it's some real life stories about some of the orphans, and they were able to interview and write some of their stories as to where they are now. Her newest book that just came out this past winter, it actually came out while we were in lockdown, and actually was able to do a pre-order, so it came in the mail while we were in lockdown. The Book of Lost Friends, and it is on my to be read list. It is in my stack to still be read, but it is the best-selling author Lisa Wingate brings to life startling stories from actual lost friends advertisements that appeared in Southern newspapers after the Civil War, as newly freed slaves desperately searched for loved ones who had been sold away. So it's going to span the time. It's going to go back and forth between Louisiana, 1875, and Louisiana, 1987. and it'll be interesting to see why those two time 1875 and 1987 why do they intersect. So read with me and we'll find out. Ruta Sepetys. If you like to follow authors, as you already know that I do, Ruta Sepetys is one to follow. She is a Lithuanian-American author of historical fiction. Her website is overflowing with information about each one of her books. She has so much research in her interviews, and she shows video, and she shows places that she went to visit, and she also has one of those voices that if you watch her interviews, you will fall in love with her just to listen to her voice. I love to watch her videos. Her first book was Between Shades of Grey. It is set in Lithuania. It's also an Amazon movie titled Ashes in the Snow. 1941, 15-year-old Lena is arrested by the Soviet secret police and deported to Siberia with her mother and younger brother. She will honor her father and her family by burying their complete story in a jar on Lithuanian soil. Lena's writings and drawings chronicle her fight for survival, her difficulty accepting help from a Soviet guard she's supposed to hate, and her struggle to retain faith in mankind amidst the terror. Another great book, and I actually have 3 in this video by Ruta, is Salt to the Sea. If you like an audiobook, this was a fantastic audiobook to listen to. In fact, I was listening to it while I was driving on a highway, traveling back and forth from St. Louis to back to home, and I had to pull over a couple times because it gets emotional, and at one point I was screaming at the audio. It was like, no. So I just had to pull over and listen to the next couple chapters, and then I carried on. But it is set in 1945. World War II is drawing to a close in East Prussia, and thousands of refugees on a desperate trek towards freedom, almost all of them with something to hide. Among them are Joanna, Emilia, and Florian, whose paths converge en route to the ship that promises salvation, the Wilhelm Gustloff. Many people don't know the story of the Gustloff ship. It was going to take them to freedom. It could only hold very few people. It held quite a few more, and it did, sadly, it sunk. And it was actually a larger catastrophe than the Titanic. Forced by circumstances to unite, the 3 find their strength, courage, and trust in each other, tested with each step closer toward safety. Just when it seems freedom is within their grasp, tragedy strikes. Not country, nor culture, nor status matter, as all 10,000 people aboard must fight for the same thing, survival. A tribute to the people of Lithuania, Poland, and East Prussia, Ruta Sepetys unearths a shockingly little-known casualty of a gruesome war and proves that humanity can prevail even in the darkest of hours. Her newest book, again, that it just came out this winter, is called The Fountains of Silence. It's Madrid, 1957. Under the dictatorship of General Francisco Franco, Spain is living in silence. Meanwhile, tourists and foreign businessmen flood into the country under welcoming promise of sunshine and wine. Among them is 18-year-old Daniel Matheson, the son of an oil tycoon, who arrives in Madrid with his parents, hoping to connect with the country of his mother's birth through the lens of his camera. Photography and fate introduce him to Anna, whose family's interweaving obstacles reveal the lingering grasp of the fortune and fear. Daniel's photographs leave him with uncontrollable questions amidst shadow of danger. He is backed into a corner of difficult decisions to protect those he loves. Lives and hearts collide, revealing an incredibly dark side to a sunny Spanish city. Two great books that I don't actually have on the table, but that are great nonfiction books. They both made great book club reads. They'll books that will stay with you long after you've closed the book. And that is author Omar Toll's The Rules of Civility. It's set in 1937, and The Gentleman in Moscow. That is one that I thoroughly enjoyed. It's 1922, and if you have a chance to listen to those were great audiobooks. They were great read books. All the Light We Cannot See, from the highly acclaimed, multiple award-winning Anthony Doerr, the stunningly beautiful instant New York Times bestseller about a blind French girl and a German boy whose paths collide in occupied France as both try to survive the devastation of World War II. And usually with especially historical fiction, they can be dark, they can be deep. I try to find some quote or phrase from the book that really stands out to me, and I write that in my book journal. In All the Light We Cannot See, there's two quotes. How do you ever know for certain that you are doing the right thing? And the other one is it right, Jetta says, to do something only because everyone else is doing it? And I thought those are very true quotes. Those are probably quotes that our parents and our grandparents, as they were raising us, they tried to teach us. That's what I tried to teach my boys. Just because everybody else is doing it doesn't mean you have to do it. So those were two great quotes from there. I can't talk about historical fiction and not mention Ken Follett. He's a very popular historic fiction writer. He has many books, many series. Probably the one that most people might recognize is The Fall of the Giants, The Winter of the World, and The Edge of Eternity series. Those were great winter, long, get a blanket and read for hours type books. Another one that I'll share is Kristen Hanna, The Nightingale. And it is going to be a movie. It's supposed to come out in the December time frame. We'll see. But it is the story of two sisters. And with courage and grace and powerful insight, best-selling author Kristen Hanna captures the epic panorama of World War II and illuminates the intimate part of history seldom seen, the Women's War. The Nightingale tells the story of two sisters separated by years and experience, by ideas, passions, and circumstance, each embarking on their own dangerous path toward survival, love, and freedom in German-occupied, war-torn France, a heartbreakingly beautiful novel that celebrates the resilience of the human spirit and the durability of women. It is a novel for everyone and a novel for a lifetime. Another great novel by Kristen Hanna, and it's featured, is The Great Alone. It's set in the 1970s in Alaska. Both of these books took off. They've been on the New York Times bestseller list for many, many, many weeks. And again, I think with every historical fiction, it takes you places that you never knew about. When you close the book, and I've said that 2 or 3 times already in this video, when you close the book, these books are going to stay with you. They just have a lot of deep, a lot of meaning. Really think about the history and the past as you're reading even the fictional part. So I hope that you will pick up some of these historical fictions and enjoy them when you're ready to to have a good sit down with lots of cups of tea or hot chocolate. They don't have to be winter books, but these are good books for when you have a long time to read. So I appreciate you joining us again for another episode of Book Chat with Julie.